Hello viewers, how are you? During this video, I'm going to discuss leadership, different theories of the leadership, decision-making styles of the leadership, and cutting-edge theories of the leadership. So let's start. And the students who are studying in my course, this is chapter number 14, leadership. Let's start. Okay, this is chapter number 14, leadership, traits, styles, and behavior. Okay, the learning goals are what is leadership and what does it mean for a leader to be effective? What trait and characteristics are related to leader emergence and the leader effectiveness? And what are the four styles of the leader can use to make decision, and what factors combine to make these styles more effective in a given situation? What two dimensions capture most of the day-to-day leadership behavior in which leaders engage? How does transformational leadership differ from transactional leadership, and which behavior set it apart? And how does leadership affect job performance and organizational commitment? And can leaders be trained to be more effective? So that's a definition of the leadership, and we have defined the leadership as the use of power and influence to direct the activities of followers toward goal achievement. So there are the two another concept which are related with the leadership is the power and influence. You can think of any leader which you consider as a leader, and when we are talking about these concepts of the leadership, then you can see that which theory is better able to explain the leadership style or leadership of those leaders which you consider them as a leader. So leadership is a process between a follower and the leader. That's basically a relational concept. One can take as a relational concept, one can take as an individual concept, one can take as a organizational or the societal concept. Uh, the leadership here we are talking about in the context of the organization. So organization leadership, that's a use of power and influence to direct the activities of followers towards goal achievement. How leaders get the power and influences needed to direct others, that we have discussed in chapter number 13, and how leaders actually use their power and influence in an effective way, and what is the effective leadership and who are the effective leaders. That's what we are going to discuss in this chapter, and how different theories of the leadership are explained, that what is effective leadership and who are the effective leader. Okay. Um, So if we focus on, I'm going to focus on the LMX theory. Let's see that what do we mean by the leader effectiveness? Leader effectiveness can be, leader effectiveness can explain in from three perspectives. One is the uh, results achieved by that unit or result achieved by that organization. That's the one dimension of the measuring a leader effectiveness. Another dimension is the commitment of the members, how much they are committed to be a part of that team or to be the part of that organization and to be work for that leader and for that leadership. And the third would be that what kind of action the employees are taking under that leadership. Let's say there are certain kind of a dysfunctional behavior as well, let's say absenteeism and another counterproductive behavior, or there are some performance oriented behavior as well. So these are three dimensions through which we can measure the leader effectiveness. One would be the outputs of the unit in some quantitative terms, profits and the sales or these kind of things. And then another could be that the certain level of commitment of the employees, and third would be the action of the employees, what kind of action the employees are taking in that organization. So first theory which can explain the effectiveness of the leadership is the LMX theory, which we call the leader member exchange theory. This theory basically focuses on relationship between leader and a follower. There are many theories which have discussed about the leader and the some traits of the leader and the behavior of the leader. But this theory consider the relationship between the follower and the leader, and bring the follower in that picture of the leadership. So that's a basically distinction of these leadership theory. And the focus is on the direct relationship between a leader and the follower. And there are three kind of a direct relationship. One could be the vertical direct linkage theory. The second is LMX theory, leader member exchange theory, and third is the team member exchange theory. But I'm going here to focus on the LMX, leader member exchange theory, which means the focus is on the quality of the each dyad and its effect on organizational outcomes over time. That means the leader has a different kind of a relationship with the different team members. So that is basically the nature of the relationship depends upon the liking and the match of the frequency of a leader and the member. So that is basically under some followers have a more close relationship with the leader. They like the leader, leader like them, and they respect their mutual respect and the understanding is higher as comparison to some other member of that group which has a relationship with the leader, but that is a more a formal relationship. And when the that's a kind of a, for example, if there is a member who is a close to the leader, and there is a member who has uh, a higher respect for the leader, and the leader respect him or her higher in comparison to the other people, that person is considered to be the in-group member of that leader, and the person to whom all official rules and regulations apply, and the mutual respect and the emotional bondage is less. That member is considered as a out-group member of that leader. So let's explore this LMX theory, that what do we mean by the in-group and what do we mean by the out-group. In-group includes followers with a strong social ties to their leader in a supportive relationship characterized by the high mutual trust, respect, loyalty, and intelligence. That's the basically mutual respect, loyalty and influence. And the outgroup include follower with few or no social ties to their leader in a strictly task-centered relationship characterized by low exchange and top-down influence. So that is the main difference between in-group and the out-group. Okay, so LMX theory describes how leader-member relationship develop over time on a dyadic basis. Dyadic basis, that is the relationship between leader and the follower. So role-taking phase, a manager describes role expectation to an employee, and the employee attempts to fulfill those expectations with his or her job behavior. So that's the initial stage when the employee enters in the organization, and that's the beginning of the relationship with the leader. So that's the role-taking phase where if the employee is extending himself or herself and doing an extra mile for that manager, so the manager, if the end manager is appreciating his work, so that lead to the different kind of a relationship between the leader and the follower. The another is role making phase. The employee's own expectation for the diet get mixed in with those of the leader. That basically after the role taking phase, after some time, when the relationship grows, then employee and the leader has a psychological contract with each other. It's become the psychological contract and the relational contract where the employee is expecting something from the leader, and the leader is also expecting something from the is expecting more from the employee. So that relationship goes beyond that legal expectations or the legal obligation, and it goes beyond that thing, and what we call become a more it's like a strong psychological contract or the relational contract between the leader and the follower. For example, the leader pays more attention, close attention, and offers sports feedback and the consideration to the follower who are in the in groups, and the follower in turn renders exceptional performance to the leader, often the one willing to go for an extra mile. So that is the kind of a relationship happened in the in groups. So you can see there is a high quality exchange in the in groups, and you can see there are the members who have a thick line with the leader. They are the part of the in group, and the who have a uh, who have a thin line, they are the part of the out group. And leader in group have greater mutual trust, greater respect, higher felt obligation, and higher quality exchange is among the in group, and the low quality exchange is between the out group members. So, so that's why leader LMX theory defined as the quality of the exchange of a relationship between leader and the follower. So that is a alternative way through which we can explain the leadership. That's another way that leader forms certain kind of in group and the out group in the organization, depending upon the quality of the relationship, mutual respect, and obligation with different team members. Okay, what factors basically influence the LMX theory? Okay, there are different kind of the factors which affect the LMX theory. One is basically followers' behavior and attitude. Um, so if the followers who are good at self-promotion will use their attribute to adjust their attitude and behavior to align with the expectation of the others. The people who want to promote themselves, they are able to assess the expectation of their leader, and then they able to act according to their expectation. Okay, the another would be leader follower perceptions and self identities. There are, the concept of the self identity is has a three dimension. One is the individual self identity, is about being self centered and unique. A relational self identity is diet centered, uh, forming relationship with other. A collective self identity is defined in terms of the broader group. A leader or individual who has an a individual self identity is perceived by other team member as such may have a difficult time forming a high quality LMX relationship as compared to someone with relational or collective identity. So these are some factors which are affecting the LMX factor. Then number of situational factor can influence the exchange relationship that develop between leader and a follower. Um, that is basically managerial. One factor would be the managerial resources, managerial the climate of the kind of the climate which the manager creates within that particular group, that is also affecting the quality of the relationship. And how people develop the high quality LMX, they sometimes use the impression management and one influencing tech which we have discussed last time, negotiation, where they are doing some favors to have some favorable impression on manager or a leader. Now we have I've discussed about the leader effectiveness. That leader effectiveness is the degree to which the leader action result in the achievement of the unit goal. The continued commitment of the unit employee and the development of mutual trust, respect, and obligation in leader-member diets. So the leader effectiveness mean here, due to that exchange of that relationship, the unit is achieving higher goals. The unit is achieving their goals, and leader and the member are committed with each other for the organizational goals, and that also develop the trust among the members and the obligation in the leader member dyad relationship. Most studies have concluded that traits are more predictive of leader emergence, who becomes a leader in the first place, than they are of leader effectiveness, that is how well people actually do a leadership role. There is a one famous theory, the trait theory, like consciousness and confidence, um, self-efficacy, and high self-esteem, intelligence. Uh, so there are many traits which explain that these are the traits of the leader, and these kind of theories are focusing on the trait of a leader. These traits are more predictive during the leader emergence, that who is considered to be the leader, because people have a different kind of a model in their mind that who is a leader, and that model has been influenced by sometime the trait theory, that these kind of the traits are in the leader, but it has not a link with the leader effectiveness, because some traits have a link with the leader emergence, but it is not necessarily linked with the leader effectiveness. So that traits are more predictive towards leader emergence, that who is considered to be as a leader in the organization. Okay. Now, if you look into the trait characteristics related to the leader emergence and effectiveness, like high consciousness, low agreeableness, high openness to experience, high extroversion, high generic cognitive ability, high energy level, high stress tolerance, high self-confidence, linked to the emergence, whereas high consciousness and low agreeableness does not link with the effectiveness, according to this research. Now coming to the leader decision-making styles. Leaders have a different kind of a decision-making style. Here they have identified few decision-making style, which we call, the one is the autocratic style, another is consultative style. Um, uh, the way the leader making a decision in their organization is also depending upon the characteristics of the follower, the situation, the leadership style. So this theory postulate that the leaders have a different leaders have a different kind of a style of decision making. One is autocratic style. The leader makes the decision alone without asking for the opinion or the suggestion of the employees in the work unit. So that is basically, that decision is taken by the leader by himself. For example, if I ask you that what would be the format of the examination, I did not ask you, but I will tell you that that would be the format of the examination. That is the autocratic style. Another would be consultative style. The leader presents the problem to individual employees or a group of employees, asking for their opinion and suggestion before ultimately making the decision him or herself. Again, in this style, the leader is making the final decision, but consulting the other individuals or the team member before making a final decision. For example, if I ask you that what are your suggestions about the format of the final examination, that is consultative style after listening to you, but that suggestions are not binding in that regard because I'm consulting it, and the final decision would be taken by me about the final exam, about the format of the final examination. The third style is facilitative style. Under the facilitative style, the leader presents the problem to a group of employees and seeks consensus on a solution, making sure that his or her own opinion receives no more weight than anyone else. What does it mean? It means that the leader will also become the part of the team, like a member. They present the problem and then they discuss about that thing, that what are the best solution to that particular problem. In that regard, the leader does not have that kind of expertise where he or she is going to make the decision by himself or herself. That is why it becomes the part of the team, and the whole team is taking a responsibility for that particular decision. And the last is delegative style, where the leader is delegating the group of the employee to make the decision about that problem. Sometimes that problem is so trivial and the leader does not want to involve into that thing, so they delegate to the team member, or sometimes team member expertise are so high, so that is why the leader delegate the problem to the team member so they can make the decision by themselves. Okay, you can also see this continuum, that on the left side, the higher follower control, and on the right side, there's a high leader control. So that's on the style of the leader, that how he or she is going to make a decision in the organization, and what are the situation, and what are the skills and abilities and the characteristics of the followers. That is a time-driven model of leadership that suggests that the focus should be shift away from autocratic, consultative, facilitative, and delegative leader to autocratic, consultative, facilitative, and delegative situations. That means there are certain kind of a situation, and leaders need to be flexible to use a different kind of a style under different kind of a situation with a different kind of a followers. So that is the basically stressing on the flexibility of the leader. That leader is more successful who is more flexible in adapting a different kind of a style with a different kind of a follower with a different kind of a situation. One disadvantage would be when the leader has a different kind of a style with a different kind of a followers and the different kind of a situation. Some people may consider the leader a bias because of their perception. that the leader is basically has a different kind of a behavior with different kind of a person. Under that circumstances, leader need to explain uh, their concern that why he or she is differentiating his or her style. So that is how they can basically address the this issue if someone raise on the leader impartiality. That model suggests that seven factors combine to make some decision making styles more effective in a given situation and other style less effective. So we can look into that thing, that what are the seven factor. It basically gives you seven factor, and once you decide about these seven factor, then you are able to decide that which style of the leadership is more effective in that situation. Okay, the first is the significance of the decision. Is the decision significant to the success of the project or the organization? If the decision is very high, you can have it. This model suggests two dimension of that thing: high significance and the low significance. If the significance of the decision is quite high, then we consider it as the high significance. For example, if I ask you that what would be the format of the examination, the decision significance is high or low. So for the students, since the final examination has a higher weightage, so that significance of the decision is quite high. Then the importance of the commitment. Is it important that employees buy into the decision? Buy into the decision, that they remain committed with that decision of the leader. How much it's important that the members of the organization, members of the team remain committed with the decision of the leader. So that is the importance of the commitment. Or leader expertise. Does the leader have significant uh, knowledge or expertise regarding the problem? That is basically if the particular problem that leader is facing, that what are the basically expertise of that problem. For example, if this is a situation where the format of the final examination need to be decided, then what are the expertise of the teacher, especially in that case, that can also be measured under the between the two dimension high and low. So we can say that the expertise of the leader is quite high when he or she is deciding about the format of the examination. The fourth one is likelihood of commitment. And likelihood of commitment, how likely is it that employee will trust the leader decision and commit to it? And that is basically employees' probability that they trust the leader, that the leader can make a better decision in that situation. If that is the basically the level of the trust of the team member is important in that during that decision making, so we can say it's high. But if the level of the trust or the importance of the trust of their member is not as much important, so we can say the decision significance is low. Likelihood of commitment is low. Okay, shared objective is a fifth dimension. Do employees share and support the same objectives, or do they have an agenda of their own? That is basically organized. If the leader is deciding about something, for example, if we are deciding about the format of the examination, so do employees share and support the same objective? All of them we have that we want to assess the learning of the individual, or do individual have certain other objectives in that scenario? They want to have some other thing which need to be relaxed, or they have some other own agenda which they want to promote. So in that regard, if there is something, so that is not alignment. And how important that the leader and the followers have a shared objectives. Then the expertise of the employee. Do the employees have a significant knowledge or expertise regarding that particular problem they are facing? For example, if you need to decide about the format of the examination, do the students have the required expertise to solve that problem? So that is basically employee expertise, which is also be considered as a high or low. Then it's about the teamwork skills. Do the employees have the ability to work together to solve the problem, or will they struggle with conflict or inefficiency? What kind of a teamwork there in that team? How well that team gel in with each other, and how they have what kind of a work processes they have developed with each other, which can have a certain kind of a synergy element. So what is the importance of the teamwork skills of the people who are working in the team? So once you have these, as you need to answer whenever you're considering any kind of a decision. So you can, under these 7 dimensions, you basically have some understanding that whether this decision is, for example, if you need to decide about the format of the examination, the significance of the decision is high, importance of the commitment of the people is also high, leader expertise is high, likelihood of the commitment, whether they are going to trust or no, uh, that depends upon the students. Sometimes it's low, and the objective shared, it's high, employee expertise is low, and teamwork skill is also low. So it is, the consultative style could be good in that regard. Okay. But if you look here, likelihood of the commitment, if the likelihood of the commitment is high, I've considered as low, then it will become the autocratic decision. The students remain committed with the decision of the leader, then it becomes the autocratic. Now, we have discussed about the LMX theory and discussed about uh, the decision-making styles and the time-driven model. But what do leaders daily do on a day-to-day basis? That is, what kind of a behavior leaders exhibit at their workplace. So there are two different theories which basically explain what leaders do, and that is, after the trade theory, the behavioral theories came in, which explain that what leaders actually do in their organization. So there was a Ohio State studies, and they basically identified one dimension which we call the initiating structure. And initiating structure reflects the extent to which the leader defines and structures the roles of employee in pursuit of goal attainment. So the leaders who are high in initiating structure, they are more focusing on that they direct the activities of the group. They basically prioritize their work and plan and schedule and try the new ideas with them. They are more focusing on the structuring about the work. They are more focusing about process and the procedures and the way the people are going to work. So that is basically initiating structure, which have they identified that some leaders have a inclination towards initiating structure. Second dimension they have identified of a behavior of a leader is consideration. That means leader is more concerned with creating a relationship, job relationship with their employees, and that is characterized by the mutual trust, respect for employee ideas, and consideration and employees' feeling. And the leaders who are high on the consideration create a climate of good climate and create a good rapport with their employees, and basically focuses on the two-way communication and have a deep concern for the welfare of initiating structure and consideration were independent concepts. That means the reader could be high on both or low on both or high on one and low on the other. So that means there are the leaders who are basically high on both dimension and then high low. That combination is possible for the according to the Ohio State studies. So under the initiating structure, you can see there are different kind of the behavior, initiation, organization, production, and under consideration, there are different kind of a behavior, membership, integration, communication, recognition, and representation. Then there is another study which is also focusing on the behavior, which also focused on the behavior of the leaders, and they have identified some concepts similar to the initiating structure and the consideration, but they use a different kind of a terminology. One is basically production oriented for initiating structure, which we call the task oriented. Another is employee centered or relationship oriented, which we consider as a consideration in the Ohio studies. And they framed their task oriented and relationship oriented concept as the two ends of one continuum, implying that leader could not be high on both dimensions. So that is basically the difference between Ohio and Michigan study, because they basically identified they uh, display uh, their dimension in continuum, so that they are not considering that the leaders could be high on both dimension, but one could have a preference for a one kind of a style, according to the Michigan study. Okay, so far we have discussed about the behaviors of a leader, that what the leaders do in the organization. So, which we have discussed the Michigan and the Ohio study. But another study so far we have not discussed a very important uh, factor in leadership, which is the uh, characteristics of the follower. And the life cycle theory of the leadership is focusing on the characteristics of the follower, the employees who are following the leader, and that basically the combination of initiating structure and consideration depends on the readiness of the employee in the work. And by the readiness, the concept that means the employee is motivated. It depends upon the motivation of the employee, and it depends upon the ability of the employee. So under these two dimension, motivation and the ability or the competency, they identified the four types of the employee. One who is unable and unwilling, that means not motivated and not want to do that thing, uh, and not motivated and does not have the required expertise to do that thing. Another would be motivated but unable to do that thing. The third would be um, able to do but not motivated, and the fourth would be both motivated and able to do their task. So employees have the ability and the willingness to accomplish their specific task, and readiness is the combination of motivation and ability, and that's what we call the willingness and the ability. The willingness here means the motivation of the employee. So that is varies from R1 to R4. They have also given some name. R1, let's say unable and unwilling. R2, unable but willing. R3, able but unwilling. And R4 is able and willing. So the combination of initiating structure, employee-centered or production-centered, yeah, initiating structure and consideration depending upon the readiness of the employee, and the readiness is defined on the motivation and the ability of that particular employee. It's a kind of a what we call the life cycle theory of the leadership, that as the employee mature, the style of the leadership also changes with that employee. That is how the leaders are more effective with the more mature followers. So the follower who is uh, the, what we call the R1, who is unable and unwilling, not motivated, not able to do the task, the leader adopt the telling style. It's like high initiating structure and the low consideration. Leader provides specific instruction and that closely supervise them at how they are going to complete their task. As the employee matures and learn their work, so that is basically the leader now can change the style, and they can adapt a style of it. They can adopt a style of a selling. That means high initiating structure and high consideration. Also motivating them, also providing them, also guide them how to do their task. As the employee more mature, the style of the leader change from the participating, that it is not the time that you are giving them the detail how to do the work, they know the work, and you're just motivating them and keep their motivation level high so they can perform their work. And as they basically matures, so that basically at this time leader turns the responsibility of the work to their employee, and that's a delegating. So telling, selling, and participating, delegating is a life cycle theory of the leadership. It basically correlates with the life cycle. As the child grows, initially we can tell the child. As the child grows, it comes into the teens, we can sell it, and then we can, as the child as it grows up into adult. So that's more about the participating. We're participating with them, or when they are fully grown up, mature person. So it's more about the delegation. Okay. So that's the life cycle theory of the leadership, and that these are the different kind of styles of the leader which can match with the readiness of the employee. And readiness is basically willingness and the ability of the employee. Now, is there something missing so far? I have asked you to basically envision a leader at the beginning of the presentation. So do you consider that there is some other thing which can explain the effectiveness of the leader? There are some cutting edge theories of the leadership which basically explain the other style of the leadership, and the one style is the transformational leadership. And these are the modern theories as comparison to the other theories which we have basically presented so far. And another concept which relates with the transformation leadership is the charismatic leadership. And what are the charisma? J.M. Burns first articulated the idea of transformation leadership in 1978. Before Bernard Bass expanded on it almost a decade. So Burns proposed two kind of a leadership style. One is transactional and another is transformational. And transformation label come from the assessment of the leader past performance rather than follower attribution. So that is basically the difference. As in the transformational leaders are more known for moving and changing things in a big way. Transformation of an organization, and the transformation leader seeks to transform a weak and the challenging organization into a profitable organization and explore new possibilities and new vision with the employees in the organization. So effective transformation leader knows how to move forward. First, they earn the trust, commitment, and the respect of the followers. Or so, transformation leader seeks to maintain stability within an organization through regular, whereas the transactional leadership seeks to maintain ability within organization through regular economic and social exchange that achieves specific goal for both leaders and followers. As a whereas transformation leader seeks to change the status quo by articulating the followers the problem in the current system and a compelling vision of what organization could be. So that is the basically difference between transformational leadership and transactional leadership. Transformation leadership involves inspiring their followers to commit to the shared vision, the new vision where they can transform the organization, and that provide a meaning to their work because they are contributing. Their work is making a contribution to for realizing that vision, and while also these leaders serve as a role model for those people, for followers, and and help them to develop their own potential and the view problem from their new perspective. Whereas the transaction leadership is more focusing on the transaction of the social and the economic exchange between the leader and the follower. But that is a basically transformation leadership have the characteristics. Was also practicing the transactional leadership, and the transformation leadership is building on the transactional leadership. So that is also important. Okay, there is a link of transactional leadership with the transformation leadership as well. Laissez-faire leadership is that is hands-off, is the avoidance of the leadership altogether. Leader has a position, but the leader is not practicing any kind of a leadership. Leader is not influencing their followers to achieve that organizational goal. This kind of a leadership is known as a laissez-faire leadership. So we discussed about the transformation leadership and what are the dimensions of the transformation leadership, because transformation leadership sometimes correlates with the high organizational performance. Okay. So transactional leadership. The transactional leadership occurs when the leader rewards or discipline the follower depending on the adequacy of the follower performance. I'm going to discuss the transformation leadership after that. That what are the different, there are dimensions of the transformation leadership, but before that I will discuss about the transactional leadership. There are three kinds of transactional leadership. One is basically passive management, that the leader is waiting for the mistakes and then taking a corrective action. Another is active management by exception. The leader arranges to monitor mistake and errors actively and again takes corrective action when required. So that is basically more proactive approach, active management by exception, that the leader has a certain kind of the monitoring activity where they are taking in a proactive action before the mistakes happen. And the third is the contingent reward. And the contingent reward means that the leader attains follower agreement and what needs to be done by using promised or actual reward for the adequate performance. That if that person is going to achieve that kind of a sales target, to the person, the leader is committing to that thing, that leader is giving a particular bonus, incentive, or financial reward for achieving that level of performance or a goal. That is a contingent reward. Contingent is depending upon the reward. Transactional leadership, one is basically passive management by exception, another active management by exception, and the third is the contingent rewards. Okay, so that is the model which you can see among the between the laissez-faire, among the laissez-faire transactional and the transformational leadership. Laissez-faire is not as a passive and the ineffective style. Transactional passive management by exception is a passive and the ineffective style. And that transactional active management by exception lies at the middle and is building on the transactional and then the transformation. So you're seeing this model is showing a ladder. It's a kind of a ladder that the transformational leadership is building on the transactional leadership, which is, and transformation is more active and more effective, whereas the laissez-faire is a bit apart from this ladder. That means that is not to be considered as an effective leadership in the organization. Okay, I've talked about, I'm now going to talk about the different dimensions of the transformation leadership. The first dimension is the idealized influence. And actually, this is the process of the transformation which the leader is executing in the organization. So idealized influence means that that involve behaving in ways that earn the admiration, trust, and respect of the followers, causing followers to want to identify with and emulate the leader. That is, it relates with the charisma of an individual. The follower has certain kind of a emotional bonding or certain kind of admiration for the leader, and due to that admiration and due to that kind of emotional bonding, it has a certain kind of idealized influence on him or her. And that could be due to the vision of that leader, that could be the goals of that leader, that could be the personality of that leader, but that is basically affecting the influencing the follower to follow that leader. That is a kind of idealized influence. And that the identity of individual merge with the identity of the leader and the collective identity emerges. That is the high level of idealized influence. Okay. Second is inspirational motivation, and by inspirational motivation means involve behaving in way that foster an enthusiasm for and commitment to a shared vision of the future. Motivating a person to commit with that uh, vision or with that dream. For example, there's the Martin Luther speech, "I have a dream," where the character of a person would not be judged by the color. Okay, so that is like inspirational motivation, motivating individuals and inspiring them to commit with that vision and building that kind of enthusiasm among them. That better days will come. Better days are in the future. So that is how the leader is basically inspire motivation among their employees and motivate follower. It basically motivate the follower to buy the vision of the leader. The leader articulates a compelling vision of the feature. Okay, that's the one thing. Okay, one could be, I've given example of you, Martin Luther King. Another example could be Nelson Mandela, and you can see their lives, how they can basically personified these different dimensions of the transformational leadership. Third is intellectual stimulation. And by intellectual stimulation, that behavior that challenges followers to think outside of the box and re-examine their old ways of doing the things. And that challenge the existing thinking pattern of their followers. And sometimes they said that we are used to do these things in that way. We are used to do these things for so many decades. That is the transformational leadership, because of that process of transformation, challenge their status quo, challenge their way of thinking, and moving them out of their box and moving them to the new way of thinking and new way of solving the problem. The follower can say the leader gets others to look at problems from many different angles. Okay. And fourth one is individualized consideration. And individualized consideration involves behaving in ways that help followers achieve their potential through coaching, development, and mentoring. Behavior that employs an individual development model that responds to the individual needs and concern. That is different from consideration, where the person is building a rapport and the relationship with the person. But here, the person is considering that what are the skills, competencies, and abilities need to be developed for that kind of a role, and providing a support and coaching and mentoring to develop those skills and abilities. So that is different between the consideration, which we have discussed in the Ohio and Michigan study, and the leader spends time in teaching and coaching. That is the one comment of the follower who have observed that the leader has individualized consideration with that particular employee. Okay. So these are the different dimensions. Idealized influence, what we call the charisma, is a fundamental factor in the transformation process. And transformation leader with the charisma, the ability to develop greater symbolic power than is used to influence the follower. The second behavior is inspirational motivation, where transformation and leaders inspired individuals. Inspiration describe how the leader passionately communicate a future idealistic goal or situation that is much better alternative to the status quo of the organization. And third behavior is individual consideration, is about the mentoring role assumed by the transformation leadership, and they serve as the mentors and coaches to their followers. And we have discussed in the LMX relationship, the dyadic relationship, the leader have a certain kind of a mutual and higher mutual respect, and the obligation is higher with their in-group members. And finally, the intellectual stimulation. They encourage followers to approach old and familiar problem in the new ways by stimulating the novel thinking, by stimulating a different way of thinking, by stimulating what they used to think, but now they used to they can leave their habitual thinking patterns and establish a new way of seeing the problems. So that is also related with the innovation and the creativity. So that is these are the four eyes of transformational leadership. Some examples from the US presidents. Okay, why are some leaders more effective than others? We have discussed about their decision-making style. If they have a flexibility to understand the situation and making their decision according to that situation, according to the characteristics of their follower, and they throughout the day, it's basically combination of initiating structure and the consideration depending upon the readiness of their followers, and optimal mix of transaction and the transformation leadership. That makes a leader an effective leader in the organization. So if you have think of any leader name, so how can you explain that leader is an effective leader by using or utilizing these different concepts of leadership theories. How important is leadership? Transformation leadership affects the job performance of the employee who report to the leader. And employees with transformation leaders tend to have a higher level of task performance and engage in a higher level of citizenship behavior. So that means employees where the transformation leadership has been practiced, they tend to have a higher organizational commitment and they tend to perform higher levels of task performance. Okay, I'm leaving this substitute for the leadership. Now I'm ending this slideshow. Okay, so this chapter is about the understanding the effectiveness of the leadership. And to summarize that thing, we have discussed about the LMX theory, we discussed about the behavioral theories, and then transformational decision styles, time-driven model, decision styles, life cycle theories of the leadership, transformational transaction leadership, and how it basically makes a leader as an effective leader. So if you think of a leader, how can you basically explain that leader under these theories? That's a one way to look into the leaders and the leadership, and especially in the situation in which we are right now, there is a need of a global leadership, there is a need of regional leadership, and so we can move on from this time.